The assignment ex Romano had cleaned worse things than aliens. Romano had cleaned worse things than aliens. In his 3 years working the detention levels of Station Nexus 7, he'd scrubbed blood from interrogation rooms, removed mysterious stains from holding cells, and once spent an entire shift cleaning what the guards called dissolved traitor. The pay was decent, the work was steady, and nobody asked questions about his past. The assignment slip appeared in his locker during the night shift change. Simple instructions printed on standard issue paper. Cell Block C, Unit 47. Female alien. Prep for questioning. Standard decontamination protocol. Nothing unusual about it, except for the handwritten note at the bottom. Handle with care. High-value prisoner. Dex gathered his supplies and made his way through the maze of corridors that formed the lower levels of the station. The air here was thick with recycled oxygen and the smell of industrial cleaners. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the metal walls. He'd learned to navigate these halls by sound rather than sight. Each section had its own rhythm of mechanical hums and electrical clicks. Cell Block C was quieter than usual. Most of the holding units were empty, their occupants either transferred or disposed of. Dex found Unit 47 at the end of the hall, sealed, behind reinforced steel doors with multiple warning signs. He keyed in his access code and stepped inside. The cell was small and cold, designed more for containment than comfort. A single overhead light cast a pale circle on the concrete floor. In the corner, curled against the wall, was the alien they'd brought him to clean. She was unlike anything he'd seen before. Her skin had a soft blue tint that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Long dark hair fell across her face, hiding her features. She wore the standard issue detention jumpsuit, torn and stained from what must have been a difficult capture. Her wrists bore the marks of restraints, and she held herself in a way that suggested both defiance and exhaustion. Dex set down his cleaning supplies and approached slowly. He'd learned that sudden movements often triggered panic responses in prisoners. As he got closer, she lifted her head and looked at him. Her eyes were larger than human eyes, a deep violet color that seemed to hold depths he couldn't fathom. There was intelligence there, and something else. Fear, yes, but also a kind of resigned dignity. She didn't speak, but she watched him carefully as he prepared his equipment. Dex found himself moving more quietly than usual, trying not to startle her. There was something about her presence that made the cold cell feel different, as if her very existence had shifted the atmosphere of the room in some subtle but profound way. First contacts had expected resistance, maybe even violence. Alien prisoners often fought during the cleaning process, seeing it as another form of violation. But she remained perfectly still as he began his work, her violet eyes following his every movement with quiet intensity. He started with the standard procedure, checking her for injuries that might complicate the decontamination process. The scanner revealed several cuts and bruises, but nothing serious enough to require medical attention. As he worked, he noticed details that the initial report hadn't mentioned. Her skin wasn't just blue-tinted. It had an almost pearl-like quality that seemed to shift and change as the light hit it. From different angles. "What's your name?" he asked softly, not really expecting an answer. Most aliens either didn't understand human language or chose not to respond. "Zara," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The sound was melodic, with an accent he couldn't place. Zara Velter. Dex paused in his work. It was unusual for prisoners to volunteer information, especially their names. "I'm Dex," he said, not sure why he felt compelled to introduce himself. She nodded slightly, as if filing away this information for future use. "You are different from the others," she observed. "Different how?" "You do not look at me as if I am a thing to be broken." The comment hit him harder than he expected. Dex had seen how the guards treated alien prisoners, had witnessed the casual cruelty that seemed to be standard procedure. He'd always told himself it wasn't his job to interfere, that he was just there to clean up afterward. As he continued the decontamination process, Zara began to speak more freely. She told him about her home world, a place called Lyrale where the oceans glowed with bioluminescent life and the cities floated among the clouds. She spoke of her people, the Veltari, who were explorers and scientists. driven by an insatiable curiosity about the universe. "We came in peace," she said, her voice growing heavy with sadness. "We wanted only to learn, to share knowledge, but your people saw us as a threat." Dex found himself listening more intently than he should have. According to the official reports, the Veltari ship had been destroyed while attempting to infiltrate human space, but Zara's version painted a very different picture, one of miscommunication and fear leading to tragedy. When it came time for the physical cleaning, Dex hesitated. The process required him to remove her contaminated clothing and wash away any foreign substances that might pose a biological threat. It was a routine procedure, but something about the way she looked at him made it feel different. "I will not harm you," she said, seeming to sense his uncertainty as he helped her out of the torn jumpsuit. Dex's hand brushed against her shoulder. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him, not painful but startling in its intensity. Her skin was warm and incredibly soft, with a texture unlike anything he'd ever felt. More surprising was the way she reacted, her eyes widening slightly as if she'd felt something too. Understanding sensation of touching Zara's skin stayed with Dex long after he'd finished the decontamination process. It wasn't just the physical contact that had affected him. It was the way she'd looked at him in that moment, as if seeing something in him that he'd forgotten existed. Over the following days, Dex found excuses to return to Cell Block C officially. He was conducting follow-up inspections and maintenance checks. Unofficially, he was drawn back by something he couldn't quite name. Each visit, he and Zara talked a little more, shared a little more of themselves. She told him about her work as a cultural anthropologist, her fascination with the diversity of life in the galaxy. He found himself sharing stories from his own past, things he'd never told anyone else. How he'd grown up on a mining colony where life was harsh and beauty was rare. How he'd joined the military hoping to see the stars, only to end up cleaning detention cells on a space station. "You have gentle hands," Zara observed one day as he checked the cell's environmental systems. "They are not the hands of someone who has only known violence." Dex looked down at his hands, scarred from years of hard labor, but steady and careful in their movements. "I wanted to be a medic once," he admitted, "before everything went wrong." "What happened?" He told her about the battle on Kepler 7, how he'd been forced to make an impossible choice between following orders and saving lives, how that choice had led to a court-martial and a dishonorable discharge, how he'd ended up here in the depths of a space station, cleaning up other people's messes. Zara listened without judgment, her violet eyes reflecting a depth of understanding that surprised him. When he finished his story, she reached through the bars of her cell and gently touched his hand. The contact sent that same strange jolt through him, but this time he didn't pull away. "You are not defined by your worst moment," she said softly. "I can see the goodness in you." Dex Romano, it shines like starlight. As the days passed, their conversations grew more intimate. Zara spoke of her fear, not of death but of dying alone and forgotten. Dex found himself making small improvements to her cell, bringing her better food, ensuring the temperature was comfortable. He told himself he was just being humane, but deep down he knew it was more than that. The turning point came when Zara fell ill. Whatever biological incompatibilities existed between their species had finally caught up with her. She developed a fever that left her weak and shivering. The medical staff dismissed it as a minor alien ailment, not worth treating. Dex couldn't stand by and watch her suffer. Using his knowledge of basic medicine and the supplies he could quietly acquire, he began treating her himself. As he bathed her forehead with cool water and administered the medications he'd smuggled from the medical bay, he realized that somewhere along the way, his feelings for her had evolved into something deeper than compassion. When her fever finally broke and she looked at him with clear eyes again, something fundamental had changed between them. They both knew it, though neither spoke of it directly. Connection. The night Zara's fever broke, Dex made a decision that would change everything. Instead of leaving after his shift ended, he stayed in the cell block, sitting on the floor outside her cell. They talked through the night, their voices barely above whispers in the dim corridor. "Why did you help me?" Zara asked, her fingers intertwined with his through the bars of her cell. "Because you're not just another alien to clean," he replied, the words coming from somewhere deep inside him. "You're Zara. You're important." She smiled at this, the first real smile he'd seen from her since they'd met. It transformed her entire face, making her appear younger and somehow more luminous. "On my world, we have a saying, the heart recognizes what the mind cannot understand. I think your heart recognized mine." Dex felt something shift inside his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the recycled air of the station. "What happens now?" he asked. "I do not know," she admitted. "Tomorrow they will begin the interrogation. They want information about my people, about our technology and our defenses." When I refused to give it to them, she didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew what happened to uncooperative prisoners. "There has to be something we can do," Dex said, his mind racing through possibilities. "Perhaps," Zara said thoughtfully, "but it would require trust, complete trust." She explained that her people possessed abilities that humans didn't understand. Not technology exactly, but something more fundamental. A connection to energy fields that permeated the universe, allowing them to sense and influence certain aspects of reality. It was why her skin seemed to shimmer, why her touch could create that strange sensation. "I could share this connection with you," she said carefully, "but it would create a bond between us that cannot be easily broken. You would always be able to sense my presence, my emotions, and I would sense yours." Dex didn't hesitate. "Do it." The process was unlike anything he could have imagined. As Zara placed her hands against his face, he felt a warm tingling that started at the point of contact and spread throughout his body. His vision blurred momentarily, then cleared with startling intensity. Colors seemed brighter, sounds more distinct, but most remarkably, he could feel Zara's presence in his mind, not as an intrusion, but as a gentle warmth, like sunlight filtering through clouds. Through this new connection, he experienced fragments of her memories, the beauty of her home world, the joy of scientific discovery, the terror of watching her ship destroyed and her crewmates killed. But he also felt her emotions in the present moment, her fear, yes, but also her hope, and underlying it all, a growing affection for him that mirrored his own feelings. "Now you understand," she said, her mental voice as clear as if she'd spoken aloud. "We are bound, you and I. Whatever happens next, we face it together." The bond between them opened up. New possibilities. Through their connection, Dex could access some of Zara's enhanced perception, while she could tap into his knowledge of the station's layout and security systems. Together, they began to plan not just her escape, but something more ambitious, a way to prevent the war that seemed inevitable if her people came looking for her. Transformation. The escape plan they developed was audacious in its simplicity. Using their newfound mental connection, Zara could extend her abilities through Dex, allowing him to manipulate the station's electronic systems in ways that would appear to be random malfunctions. Meanwhile, he would use his access and knowledge of the facility to create the perfect opportunity. On the night they chose to act, Dex arrived for his shift with his heart pounding, but his resolve steady. Through their bond, he could feel Zara's calm confidence, her absolute trust in him. It gave him strength he'd never known he possessed. The first phase went perfectly. Dex triggered a series of minor system failures that drew security personnel away from Cell Block C. While the guards dealt with what appeared to be cascading technical problems, he used his master access codes to open Zara's cell. She emerged gracefully, her movements fluid despite weeks of confinement. In the dim light of the corridor, her skin seemed to glow more brightly than before, as if their connection had somehow enhanced her natural luminescence. "Are you ready?" she asked, both aloud and through their mental link. Dex nodded, feeling more ready than he'd ever felt for anything in his life. They made their way through the station's maintenance tunnels, areas Dex knew better than anyone. Through their connection, Zara enhanced his natural sense of direction, while he guided them past security sensors and automated patrols. They moved as one being, perfectly synchronized. Their destination was the communications ray, where Zara could send a message to her people, not a distress call that might prompt a military response, but something more subtle, a cultural exchange proposal. That would give both species a chance to understand each other before fear. And misunderstanding led to war. As they worked together to modify the communications equipment, Dex realized that everything in his life had led to this moment. His medical training, his military experience, even his years as a maintenance worker, had all prepared him for this. He wasn't just helping an alien escape. He was helping to bridge the gap between two civilizations. When Zara's message was complete and transmitted, she turned to him with tears in her violet eyes. "You have given me more than freedom," she said. "You have given me hope for both our peoples." The station's alarms began to sound as their absence was discovered, but it was too late. Zara's ship, hidden in the asteroid field beyond the station, responded to her signal. Within hours, a small Veltari vessel arrived, not as an invasion force but as ambassadors. As Dex watched Zara prepare to leave with her people, he felt a moment of profound loss. But through their bond, she sent him waves of reassurance and love. "This is not goodbye," she said, taking his hands in hers one final time. "We are connected now, across any distance. And when my people establish their embassy here, they will need someone who understands both our worlds. Someone who can help us build bridges instead of walls." Months later, Dex stood in the newly constructed Veltari embassy, no longer a maintenance worker but a cultural liaison. Through the transparent walls, he could see the stars, and somewhere among them, he could feel Zara's presence, warm and constant in his mind. Their love had transformed not just themselves, but the destiny of two worlds. What had begun as a simple cleaning assignment had become the foundation for a new era of understanding and cooperation between species. And at the center of it all was the memory of that first electric touch, when he'd realized she was far more than just another alien. Too clean,